Intro music with a sense of cosmic wonder and underlying tension fades in and then fades to background. The shriek of tearing metal was the only lullaby I'd had for 3 days. My ship, the questionable decision, was living up to its name, currently wrapped around a Helios Corp dreadnought's docking claw like a cheap tinfoil sculpture. Inside, I was having a similarly enjoyable time. Alarms blared, a final futile protest before the life support gave up the ghost. My ribs screamed a coloratura soprano every time I breathed, and the gash on my forehead was doing its best Jackson Pollock impression on the cockpit's viewport. This was not by any stretch of the imagination my finest hour. On a scale of 1 to catastrophically screwed, a voice echoed in my mind, smooth as synth ale and twice as bitter, I'd rate this a solid 12. You've surpassed your usual incompetence and achieved a new zenith of failure. I'm almost proud, I groaned, palming the warm, crystalline shard hanging against my sternum. Shut up, Echo. I'm trying to bleed out in peace here. The shard, a parasite I'd picked up on a dig in the Forgotten Sectors, pulsed with condescending light. Peace? Ryder, you wouldn't know peace if it landed on your face and laid eggs. Your entire existence is a symphony of poor choices and bad jokes. The cockpit door exploded inward, showering the cabin with sparks and very final-looking soldiers in sterile white armor. They moved with the soulless precision of factory-fresh death machines. One of them leveled a pulse rifle at my head. Ryder Maxwell, its helmet-filtered voice buzzed. By the authority of the Helios Corporation, you are under arrest for... well, the list is rather long. Let's just say, for being you. My grand entrance to the Zenith 1 research facility was less a walk of shame and more a controlled fall down several flights of stairs, punctuated by the helpful Taz prods of my new best friends. They dragged me through corridors so white they hurt the eyes, the air thick with the scent of ozone and institutional despair. Every corner featured a smiling holographic poster reminding us, compliance is liberation. I was processed, decontaminated with a spray that felt like being licked clean by a sand slug, and issued a jumpsuit the color of faded hope. As I wrestled with the magnetic clasps, Echo stirred again. Fascinating. They're using a Z-class bioscour. It's designed to eradicate any non-sanctioned organic material. On the bright side, that rash you've been cultivating should be gone. On the downside, you are now technically sterile. I caught my haggard reflection in a polished bulkhead. Dark hair matted with blood and grime. The old scar through my eyebrow looking less like a charming flaw and more like a tectonic fault line. The jumpsuit hung on my wiry frame like a shroud. Just another Tuesday, I muttered. A high-pitched, chittering sound made me look down. A small, fox-like alien with 6 twitching ears and eyes that saw everything, especially the angles, sidled up to me. First time in the deep freeze? He squeaked, his name tag reading Flick. You've got the, I just lost a fight with a sanitation drone look. Very popular this season. I managed a weak grin. What's the game here, Flick? The game is survival, he whispered, leaning in conspiratorially. And you, my friend, just lost before you even learned the rules. They're sending you to the heart. The heart? Section 9. The core of this whole rotten moon. It's not a cell block, it's a tomb. They send feeders in, but nothing ever comes out, except for the screaming. Sometimes, you can hear the screaming. The next cycle, I was shoved into a transport alone and sent spiraling down into the moon's core. The pristine white corridors gave way to raw, unrefined rock, reinforced with humming energy conduits. The air grew cold, heavy. Finally, the transport docked at a circular platform overlooking a chasm. In the center of the chasm, suspended by colossal energy tethers, was a sphere of obsidian-like material, easily 100 meters in diameter. Section 9. A single grizzled woman with a face like a roadmap of bad decisions sat at a console. She looked me up and down, unimpressed. New feeder? Let's see how long you last. The last one made it 17 minutes. Set a new record for us, kid. She gestured to a cart loaded with containers of nutrient paste and what looked like frozen space kelp. Take that to the central airlock. The specimen only gets one feeding per cycle. If the inner light is blue, you're probably fine. If it's red, well, try not to get any on the floor. It's a nightmare to clean up. Pushing the squealing cart across the bridge, the sheer scale of the place hit me. This wasn't a prison. It was a cage for something they feared on a planetary level. You realize, Echo's voice was uncharacteristically quiet, that the energy readings from that sphere could power a small star. Whatever is in there is not merely a specimen. It is a god. I reached the airlock, a massive circular iris in the black sphere. I palmed the access panel, and with a hiss that sounded like a dying breath, it opened. The inner chamber was impossible. It wasn't a room, but a pocket of captured night. The walls were a swirling nebula of deep violets and blues, dotted with points of light that pulsed like distant stars. The air hummed, not with machinery, but with a deep, resonant thrum that vibrated in my bones. And in the center, seated on a throne of what looked like crystallized moonlight, was her. The rumors, the whispers. They'd done her no justice. She was a titan, a colossus of elegant, terrifying beauty. Easily 5 meters of lean, powerful muscle, wrapped in skin the color of a twilight storm, shifting and swirling with its own internal light. Hair like spun starlight cascaded down her back, moving as if underwater. But her eyes were twin supernovas, burning with a cold, ancient fury that promised a death so complete, my ancestors would feel it. She watched me, unmoving, as I pushed the cart in. The silence was heavier than any planet's gravity. My usual bravado, my go-to shield of sarcasm, evaporated. I felt like a microbe under a microscope. I started unloading the containers, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped one. Dinner is served? I croaked. Nothing. Not a twitch. It's, nutrient paste. All the essential amino acids to support giant, terrifying life. And some space kelp. It's green. The silence stretched. My brain, in a desperate attempt to fill the void, decided to engage my mouth without permission. Look, I know this probably isn't your first choice. I had a steak once, on Titan. It was chewy, but better than this, I bet. So, you know, I get it. Her head tilted a fraction of a degree, a movement that carried the weight of a dying star. And then, it happened. My foot slipped on a patch of condensation. I stumbled, pinwheeling my arms, and sent a water canister flying. It burst against the crystalline floor, the clear liquid spreading in a rapidly growing puddle. Scrap! I breathed, dropping to my knees and fumbling with the uselessly small napkins from the cart. Scrap! I'm so sorry. First day. Bad impression. I'll wipe that right up. You apologize? Her voice was not a sound. It was a geological event. It resonated through the floor, up my spine, and rattled my teeth. It was deep, melodic, and held the crushing power of a black hole. Echo went completely silent, a first in our long and irritating acquaintance. I looked up from my pathetic mopping attempt, my heart hammering against my ribs. Well, yeah, I made a mess. She leaned forward. The universe seemed to lean with her. The star-flecked patterns on her skin swirled faster. The others they sent, they screamed, they begged, they cursed, they threw the food and ran. Those supernova eyes narrowed. You are the first to apologize for spilled water. It's common courtesy? My survival instincts, which had clearly been on vacation, suddenly kicked back in. I should probably go. Wait. The word wasn't a command, it was a hook, a gravitational pull that rooted me to the spot. She rose from her throne and kept rising. The sheer, impossible scale of her was breathtaking. She unfolded with a grace that defied physics, each step toward me silent and deliberate. The nebula on the walls seemed to brighten as she passed. My brain helpfully supplied a list of all the ways she could kill me without even trying. Stepping on me was the least imaginative. "She's not just a biological entity," Echo whispered, its voice laced with something I'd never heard before: awe. "She's a nexus, a confluence of energies I can't even quantify." She stopped a few meters away, a distance that felt both terrifyingly close and cosmically vast. This close, I could see the sorrow etched in her perfect features, a grief so profound it seemed to bend the light around her. "What are you called, small apology?" The question was soft, but carried across the chamber like a shockwave. "Max, Ryder Maxwell. Max is fine." She tasted the name, rolling it around in that impossible voice. Max. It sounded less like a name and more like a fundamental constant of the universe. "I am Xylia." A warning klaxon blared from the airlock. Feeding time was over. "You should go, Max," she said, her voice once again distant, the brief flicker of connection extinguished. "They do not like tardiness." I scrambled back to the cart, my mind a whirlwind of violet skin and a voice that could crack planets. At the door, I paused. I'll bring extra napkins tomorrow." She didn't turn, but I saw her shoulders shake in what might have been a silent laugh. The door hissed shut, leaving me in the sterile corridor, my heart still trying to beat its way out of my chest. "Well," Echo finally said, its usual snark returning, though it sounded strained. "That was unexpected. You seem to have a talent for annoying beings of immense cosmic power into not immediately disintegrating you. It's a niche skill, I'll grant you that." "Just shut up," I said, but there was no heat in it. My world had just been fundamentally tilted on its axis. And as I walked back across the bridge, I knew with a certainty that terrified me that I had to go back. I had to know why a god was locked in a cage at the heart of a moon, and why, for just a moment, she had looked at me with something other than rage. The next 3 weeks became a strange, secret ritual. Every cycle, I'd take the cart down to the heart, and every cycle Xylia would be waiting, not on her throne, but standing near the edge of the platform, an unspoken welcome. Our conversation started small. I'd tell her about rain, about crowded city streets, about the taste of real coffee. She, in turn, described concepts that made my head spin. Of worlds where music was a physical substance, of seeing time not as a line, but as an ocean, with its own tides and currents. I smuggled things for her, a data pad loaded with ancient Earth literature, a flowering plant I'd bribed Flick for, which thrived in the strange light of her cell, and chocolate. The first time I gave her a piece, she held it with a reverence that bordered on religious. She took a bite, and her eyes, those swirling nebulas, flared with a brilliant, vibrant gold. The fury I'd seen on that first day was gone, replaced by a raw, painful vulnerability. "I had forgotten," she whispered. "Sweetness, how long have you been in here?" I asked, my voice softer than I intended. Her laugh was like the grinding of tectonic plates. "I have watched stars be born and die from this cage, Max. Time has little meaning here." "Why?" I pressed. "What could you have possibly done?" The light in her eyes dimmed, swirling back to a deep, sorrowful violet. "The same thing that makes this flower beautiful," she said, gesturing to the plant I'd brought. I grew. My people, the Lumani, were one with the energies of the universe. We could shape reality, sing new worlds into existence, but our power was tied to our connection, to our emotions. Helios Corporation saw this not as a gift, but as a flaw, an instability. They captured me as a child, the last of my line, hoping to dissect my power, to weaponize it, to strip it of the feeling they considered a weakness. "They're not scientists," I said, the words tasting like ash. "They're butchers!" Her gaze was intense. You are the first being to visit me who was not sent by Helios. The first who speaks without agenda. Why? Before I could answer, a voice, cold and sharp as cryogenic fluid, echoed from my comm unit. Ryder, report to the director's office. Immediately. Xylia's expression hardened, the sorrow replaced by a protective fury that was somehow more terrifying than her initial rage. Go, she commanded. And be careful. The one who calls himself director is a hollow man, filled only with ambition. Director Valerius Cladd's office was the physical embodiment of a sterile soul. Featureless chrome, sharp angles, and a single massive window looking out not at space, but back into the labyrinthine corridors of the facility. He was a tall, unnaturally still man, his face a perfect ageless mask that betrayed nothing. Mr. Ryder, he said, his voice a flat monotone. You have been fraternizing with the asset. It wasn't a question. She's a person, I shot back. Her name is Xylia. It is a series of biological and energetic systems designated Specimen X, Cladd corrected, without a flicker of emotion. And it has developed a dangerous attachment to you, an emotional vulnerability, a flaw. He moved to the window, his reflection as lifeless as his demeanor. I have spent 40 years trying to replicate the Lumani's power, their ability to manipulate quantum reality. But I have always been blocked by one inconvenient factor, emotion. The technology requires a connection, a resonance that my logical, controlled mind cannot achieve. He turned, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes, a hunger, a void. But you, Mr. Ryder, with your chaotic, sentimental nature, you have forged that connection for me. You have become my key. What do you want? I asked, my blood running cold. The buyers are arriving in 1 week. They are paying an astronomical sum for a weapon that can erase a star system with a thought. Specimen X will be that weapon, but her full potential is locked behind her will, her emotions. You will break that for me. Go to hell. Cladd's lips curved into something that was technically a smile, but held no warmth. I'm already there. You, however, have friends. He gestured to a monitor, and an image of Flick appeared, sleeping in his bunk. The ventilation system in the lower sectors is so easy to manipulate. A simple accident. A neurotoxin release. He would never even wake up. The threat was unspoken, but absolute. My rage was a white-hot nova, but I was trapped. What do you want me to do? I ground out. Continue your visits, Cladd said, turning back to the window. Make her trust you. Make her care for you. And when her heart is completely open, I will take what I need. Her grief, her betrayal, that will be the fuel that unlocks her power. Make her love you, Mr. Ryder. Then I want you to break her. The walk back to Section 9 was the longest of my life. Every step was a betrayal. Echo was silent, offering no sarcastic quips, only a cold, heavy dread that mirrored my own. When the airlock hissed open, Xylia was there, her expression etched with worry. Max, what did the Hollow Man want? I couldn't meet her eyes. I started unloading the cart, my movements jerky, robotic. I had to play the part. I had to make it believable. He just reminded me of the rules, I lied. The lie felt like swallowing broken glass. She moved closer, her presence a warm, comforting gravity. Your patterns are chaotic, she said softly. You are in pain. It's nothing. Look at me, Max. I forced myself to look up into those stellar eyes, and I knew I was lost. I couldn't do it. I couldn't be the weapon that destroyed her. Xylia, I began, the truth clawing its way up my throat. He knows. He knows about us. He wants me to make me vulnerable, she finished, her voice a low, dangerous rumble. To use your kindness as a scalpel to carve out my soul. You knew? I do not hear words as you do, she explained, her hand rising, stopping just short of my face. I perceive the song of a being's existence, the harmonies and dissonances. Your song, Max, has always been honest, even when your words are not. The lie you just told, it was the most discordant note I have ever heard from you. Shame and relief washed over me in a dizzying wave. He's watching, I whispered. He'll kill my friends. And you would sacrifice yourself for them, she stated, a deep understanding in her eyes. That is the core of your song. It is why it resonates with mine. She finally touched my cheek. Her touch wasn't physical in the way I knew. It was a wave of warmth, of starlight, of a billion years of silent wisdom pouring into me. The contact sent a jolt through my entire being, and echoes screamed in my mind, a sound of pure, unadulterated ecstasy. "The connection!" it gasped. "It's complete!" In that moment, alarms shrieked through the facility. Not a drill, but a piercing, primal wail. Lockdown. The lights in Xylia's cell flashed a blood red, and the energy barrier around her platform intensified with a deafening crackle. The main door to Section 9 burst open, but it wasn't clad. It was a flood of other prisoners, their faces masks of desperation and greed, armed with scavenged pipes and sharpened tools. At their head was a hulking, four-armed alien I recognized from the mess hall. "The bounty!" it roared. "Clad promised freedom to whoever takes down the specimen." They charged, a wave of desperate, violent bodies. Xylia moved like a storm. She swept me behind her with one arm, a protective wall of divine power. But even she was hampered by the facility's restraints, energy shackles that pulsed around her wrists and ankles. "The control nexus!" Echo screamed in my mind. "On the far wall. Her shackles are powered from there. If I can interface, I can break the encryption." I saw it, a small panel high up on the wall, impossibly out of reach. "Xylia, the panel! Get me to the panel!" She understood instantly. Amidst the chaos of the riot, she grabbed me, her massive hand, surprisingly gentle, and threw me. Not like a weapon, but like a prayer. I sailed through the air, a ridiculous, flailing projectile of hope. I slammed into the wall, slapping the shard against the panel's interface. The world dissolved into a waterfall of light and pure data. Lumari code, elegant and infinitely complex, flooded my senses. I wasn't reading it. I was living it. I saw the restraint system, a lattice of energy and control. And I saw its flaw. "Now!" I screamed. Xylia, fending off 3 attackers with one hand, slammed her other fist against the Nexus panel. The entire sphere of Section 9 groaned in protest. Sparks rained down like fireflies, and the energy shackles around her wrists and ankles shattered into a million pieces of light. For a single beautiful second, the attacking prisoners froze, realizing the catastrophic mistake they had just made. And then, Xylia showed them what true power was. She didn't strike them, she sang. A single, pure note that was not a sound, but a command to the very fabric of reality. The prisoners' makeshift weapons dissolved into dust. The air grew heavy, pressing down on them, forcing them to their knees, not in pain, but in overwhelming, terrifying awe. The riot was over. Into the sudden, ringing silence, a slow, deliberate clap echoed from the ruined doorway. Director Clad stood there, flanked by a dozen elite Helios kill drones, their weapon ports glowing with malevolent red light. "Magnificent," he said, his voice as flat as ever, but his eyes burned with a triumphant fire. "Truly a demonstration worthy of my buyers. Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Your part in this is now concluded." The drones raised their weapons. Xylia moved in front of me, a living shield of cosmic fury. "This ends now, Hollow Man," she boomed. But Clad only smiled. "Oh, it ended 40 years ago." He unbuttoned his uniform, and the sight beneath made my blood freeze. Embedded in his chest, where his heart should be, was another crystal. A corrupted twin to Echo, dark and fractured, pulsing with a sick purple light. "I took their gift," he whispered, "and I perfected it. I cut out the weakness, the feeling. I am what your people should have been, Xylia. Pure, logical, powerful. You are an abomination," she snarled. "I am the future," he countered, and gave the drones a single command. "Erase them." But Xylia laughed, a sound of pure, untamed power that shook the very foundations of the moon. "You think you stole our fire, little man?" she said, her body beginning to glow with an incandescent internal light. "You only ever played with its shadow." She began to sing again, but this was different. This was the song of creation, the deep code that bound the universe together. It was a language of starlight and gravity, of time and possibility. And Echo resonated with it, screaming in my mind, not in pain, but in harmony. In Clad's chest, the corrupted shard began to vibrate violently. The sick purple light flared, and for the first time, a flicker of something raw and terrified broke through his emotionless mask. Pain. Fear. "Stop!" he gasped, clutching his chest. "What are you doing?" "I am not doing anything." Xylia's voice was the whisper of a dying galaxy and the roar of a newborn star. "I am simply reminding your stolen heart of its home." The corrupted crystal tore itself from Clad's chest in a blinding explosion of dark energy. He collapsed, screaming, not from the physical wound, but from the sudden, agonizing return of 40 years of suppressed, atrophied emotions hitting him all at once. The drones, their controller gone, powered down into inert statues. Xylia caught the freed crystal, its corrupted light fading, being purified by her song until it glowed with the same healthy, warm light as Echo. "Two halves," she whispered, looking from the crystal in her hand to the one on my chest. "My mother's heart. She split it before she died. One piece to find a soul brave enough to see past the monster." She looked at me, and her supernova eyes were filled with something so profound, so brilliant, it stole the air from my lungs. "And one piece to guide him." The ground began to shake. The entire facility, its power source destabilized, was collapsing. "We need to go," I said, my voice hoarse. Xylia knelt, her face level with mine. "Together?" she asked, a universe of meaning in that single word. I grinned, a stupid, giddy, life-affirming grin. "Always." She scooped me up as if I weighed nothing, cradling me against her chest as the world came down around us. We ran through collapsing corridors and panicked crowds, a god and her unlikely accomplice, toward an uncertain dawn. "For the record," Echo chirped, its voice bright and clear and impossibly happy, "I approve of this series of catastrophically reckless decisions." And as we burst through the main gates onto the moon's purple-hued surface, with a revolution of freed prisoners at our backs and an entire corporation wanting us dead, I looked up at the impossible, beautiful woman holding me, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was running from something. I felt like I was running toward everything. If you enjoyed this journey to the heart of Zenith 1, make sure you subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss a single story from across the galaxy. Every creator needs fuel, and for us, that's your likes, your shares, and your comments. Let us know below. What simple act of kindness do you think could start a revolution?